All right. I'd like to call the meeting to order. The BRTB's Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Group. I'm Eric Lashinsky from City of Annapolis. Charlene, will you go ahead and do the roll call?
Will do. So the roll call will start with City of Annapolis.
Present.
Anne Arundel County. Baltimore City. Baltimore County.
Present.
Carroll County.
Present.
Harford County. Howard County.
Present. Chrisitov here.
Right. Queen Anne's County.
Here, Steve Chandley.
Maryland Department of the Environment.
Here.
Maryland Department of Planning.
Here.
MDOT Maryland Highway Safety Office.
Hi, everybody. Cynthia Spriggs here.
And MDOT MTA. Then we have MDOT State Highway Administration.
This is Barry List for SHA.
And MDOT, the Secretary's Office. That's the roll call.
All right. Well, next on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting in March. Hopefully everybody was able to take a glance at those. Charlene included them in the calendar invite for this meeting. Does anybody have any changes they would like to make to the minutes?
And we didn't receive any changes in advance of the meeting.
All right. Well, can I get a motion to approve the minutes in a second?
I motion to approve the minutes.
Second. I'll second.
Thank you both. Just I guess get a simple yay or nay. All in support say aye. I'm sorry. Aye.
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 All opposed say nay. All right. Minutes are approved. Thank you. Well, I'd like to welcome our first presenter to the meeting from Montgomery County, speaking about the pedestrian master plan that the county completed. We have Eli Glazier here, acting county transportation planning supervisor within their planning department. Appreciate you for being here. I was working on in my previous life, I was working on a project for Montgomery County as a consultant at the same time this was happening. So sort of following it along and was really impressed with the breadth of it. So looking forward to hearing about it.
Great. Thanks for having me. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Great. I would love to share my screen if I can.
Charlene, are you able to, does he have to be a?
They should be able to share now.
No, I think I should be able to.
Yeah.
Great. You seeing it?
Yeah.
Great. So yeah, my name is Eli Glazier. Currently, I am the acting countywide transportation planning supervisor for the planning department. But in an immediate prior role, I was the project manager for the county's first pedestrian master plan. This plan, seen here, the second from the right, sort of comes in a line of plans the county's working on to sort of reimagine the multimodal future of Montgomery County. So continue our work to pivot from an automobile-oriented suburb into a community of 15-minute neighborhoods, and just trying to nail the land use transportation requirements to make that sort of thing happen. So in 2018, we adopted our bicycle master plan, In 2021, we developed updated street design standards and requirements and different street typologies to essentially acknowledge that the same road traveling through different parts of the county should be designed differently because the experience in those areas is different. In 2022, we adopted Thrive Montgomery 2050, which is our general plan, the first time it had been comprehensively updated since the 60s. The pedestrian master plan was adopted in 2023. And then we're currently working on an update to our master plan of highways and transitways, which is the document that lays out, it classifies streets into different typologies and then defines their right of way and how many lanes they should have and things like that. So we continue to plan in a very multimodal way here to allow for sort of the future build out of the county in a way that is in line with the vision that the county has. The PED plan the goal of this plan is to make walking and rolling safer, more comfortable, more convenient, more accessible for people of all ages and abilities. There are 4 goals: to increase walking rates and pedestrian satisfaction, to create a comfortable, connected, and convenient pedestrian network, to enhance pedestrian safety. Montgomery County adopted Vision Zero in 2016, and then to do all of that in an equitable and just way. The plan, a major milestone of the plan was the adoption of the development of our existing conditions report that, in addition to the use of several state and national sources like the census, planning staff worked to develop several Montgomery County specific sources, including a countywide pedestrian survey, where in late 2020, published in March 2021, we surveyed 60,000 Montgomery County households to better understand how often, for what reasons people walked, where they were walking, what would help them walk more in the county. This was sort of the first time the planning department had done a statistically valid survey for a master plan. Our goal is to put out this survey every 2 years to see how answers to these questions change. We have an RFP out right now for the next version of the survey. Some findings we had, generally, like on the left, looking at satisfaction by reported disability, there's about a 10% disparity between people without a reported disability and people with a reported disability when it comes to how comfortable they are with the pedestrian experience. But looking at different parts of the county in our more urban areas, satisfaction is equal, about the same, between people with and without reported disabilities. But as we get into more suburban contexts, the disparity grows. So people with disabilities are less satisfied. Another tool that we used in the pedestrian plan is what we call the pedestrian level of comfort analysis. If folks on the call are familiar with bicycle level of traffic stress, which is an analysis that quantifies the comfort of bikeways and roadways. This does something similar for sidewalks and trails and places where you walk in a street, and crossings using data like sidewalk width, speed of traffic, buffer width, the presence of on-street parking, etc. We have a map at mcatlas.org/pedplan, which is in the upper right, that essentially scores all of our sidewalk segments, crossing segments, for the whole county in terms of how comfortable they are to walk on. From dark blue, 1, we call it block 1, very comfortable, where using this connection is enjoyable for people of all ages and abilities. It's in good condition and meets current design standards. Down to red, which would be undesirable, where it's a challenge. You may not, if you're walking with your kids, like, you may avoid this route, or you certainly wouldn't feel comfortable with them walking by themselves on a route like that. So it's sort of a continuum from very comfortable to undesirable. And we are able to use this essentially GIS layer to run certain analyses. For instance, looking at weakest link, like pinch points for comfort or safety from like accessing a school, for instance, like looking at which routes are maybe the most direct routes, but have connections that should be improved. This can help us better understand where to channel limited resources, limited capital dollars in a way that's going to be the most cost effective. We also did something similar. This is the pedestrian master plan. Existing conditions report has maps for all the schools in Montgomery County, all the regional and recreational parks, all the transit stations and things like that, to get a better sense of where these pinch points are. In addition to level of comfort, we worked with Montgomery County Public Schools on a student travel tally, which was completed by over 70,000 students in late 2019. The current version of this tally is currently in progress with MCPS to update it for 2023, just to really help us get a sense of how students were arriving to and departing from school, to help us develop a baseline of student walking rates across the county today, so we can see over time the recommendations that we've made if there's been any increase in student walking. We did a crash analysis of crashes from 2015 to 2020 to understand where crashes were happening and if we could develop recommendations to help mitigate future crashes from occurring. I think two things jumped out at us, looking at equity focus areas, or I think MWCOG would call them equity emphasis areas, which are areas of low English proficiency, poverty, etc. These areas had about 14% of the roadway miles in the county, but were the site of 40% of pedestrian crashes and 44% of pedestrian fatalities and severe injuries. So really just significantly worse pedestrian safety conditions in these areas than the county as a whole. Looking at the percentage of pedestrian crashes that resulted in fatalities or severe injuries, this highlighted cells represent about 5% of the roadway miles in the county. So controlled major highways in urban areas, major highways in urban areas along transit corridors, and then business district and primary residential streets. So it's about 5%, but it's over 50% of the pedestrian severe injury and fatality crashes in the county. So we have a big problem, but it's happening on relatively few streets. So that's helpful information for us. The existing conditions report led to the development of 4 kinds of recommendations. The first is design, policy, and programming recommendations, which are higher level policy recommendations that address systemic issues that affect the pedestrian experience. So these are things that, as they're implemented, they won't necessarily change how the county looks or feels overnight, but as new construction, maintenance, private development happen, the county will become more pedestrian friendly. So some of these include changing pedestrian signal timing in certain places to allow younger pedestrians, older pedestrians, and people with mobility issues to be able to cross safely. Improving the state of driver education statewide, particularly for people driving sort of larger vehicles with blind spots and things like that. Shifting from a reactive process of sidewalk construction and maintenance to a proactive, data-driven one. Sort of teaming up and helping to achieve the county's climate action plan goals by looking into opportunities to change the materials that we're using to build out our streetscapes to help mitigate climate impacts like extreme heat. And then a major conversation in Montgomery County over the years has been how state highways are designed and maintained. And the plan identifies a couple of recommendations to essentially advance how the increased design oversight of these state roads by county agencies to allow our master plans and sort of the vision that the county has for these corridors to be more easily achieved. We have an index of recommendations that we can jump back to if there are questions about these later, but there's over 100 key actions. There's about 34 recommendations, so I'm not going to go through all of them in this short presentation. In addition to the higher level policy recommendations, we developed a way to prioritize which areas of the county should be receiving our limited pedestrian and bicycle capital money. So we broke the county up into, I believe, 800 geographies. So downtowns and town centers, major roadways, and then all of these neighborhoods in between. And we evaluated these areas on a variety of factors, including the amount of existing pedestrian activity, crash risk, comfort, bicycle activity, bicycle crash risk and comfort, and then access to transit and schools, with an overlay at the end for our equity focus areas. So it's our hope that the county DOT, as we update the CIP, will use these geographies in their prioritization to direct money in this way. We also, as part of the pedestrian plan, help facilitate the transition from the traditional roadway functional classification system to our Complete Streets Design Guide. The Complete Streets Design Guide essentially takes the land use context on the left, so downtown, town center, suburban, industrial, etc., and combines it with the roadway function to create these composite street types. So downtown boulevard, downtown street, suburban boulevard, town center boulevard, etc., which all have slightly different design requirements, target speeds, etc. And the pedestrian plan, by identifying area types, so like where downtowns and town centers are in Montgomery County, is helping to facilitate the implementation of these new street classifications, which will be completed by the in-progress update to the Master Plan of Highways and Transitways. So the plan identified additional downtowns in Montgomery County, shown in red, including White Oak, Rock Spring, and the Great Seneca Science Corridor, life sciences area, downtown centers, which are sort of that beige-ish color, and then identified suburban, industrial, and then the country areas in the county as well. In terms of actual infrastructure recommendations, the plan, this is not a plan that made specific recommendations about where sidewalks should go across the county, which I think is a common element of pedestrian plans that we've seen. Our plan generally focuses on those systemic policy and design recommendations, but there are a set of recommendations for where pedestrian shortcuts should go. So these shortcuts are informal pedestrian paths that are not along streets, that often provide more direct pedestrian routes than the existing sidewalk and trail network. I think people may call these people's choice paths or desire lines or goat paths. And our plan identifies 310 of these connections countywide that, either through public investment or through redevelopment, these connections should be upgraded to accessible all-weather facilities so that people of all ages and abilities can use them. We also recommended the addition, we recommended the inclusion of 21 side paths, so shared pedestrian and bicycle pathways, in the more rural parts of the county. So we recommended 21 of those connections as well. So those are generally, I think, a low priority in the scheme of where the county is investing pedestrian and bicycle money. But as development projects arise and other opportunities occur, having recommendations in the master plan is really helpful to getting these projects built. There's a significant monitoring component to the plan as well. We're looking to develop a monitoring report that comes out every 2 years that tracks the progress and implementing the metrics in the plan. And we'll have a website and things like that. But that's all I have. If there are any questions, I can get into some other recommendations or talk a little bit more fully about what I summarized. So thanks.
Thanks, Eli. That's impressive. I'm curious if you've if you've seen a change in your CIP since coming out of the plan, like if the council has kind of taken this up as a big priority and or if you know how much more you needed to really make a dent.
Yeah, I think frankly, the county council has been very supportive of these ideas, and the plan it was like 4 years, like it took 2 years longer than it was supposed to, as these things do. But partway through, so before the plan was adopted, county council approved the Safe Streets Act, which is a set of recommendations that include leading pedestrian intervals and no turn on red restrictions and things like that, that were specifically recommended in the pedestrian plan that was still in draft. So we coordinated closely with our electeds at that point. So there have been several recommendations that have already been implemented even before the plan had been adopted. So on the policy level, I think we've had a lot of early success in implementing the recommendations. My colleague from MCDOT, Matt Johnson, who you may be familiar with, is developing a standards document about accessibility in the public right-of-way for Montgomery County that essentially incorporates ProWAG, but will sort of be more descriptive and helpful for county projects. And the way that document is written will implement several other policy recommendations in the plan as well when it comes to tactical walking surface indicators for people who are blind and things like that. So I think the short of it is we're seeing a lot of progress on the systemic policy recommendations. Funding is always going to be a challenge. This is a council that has demonstrated significant support for pedestrian, bicycle, transit projects in the CIP. I think it will take some time to shift the prioritization of those projects in a more data-driven direction. I think everyone on this call is probably familiar with just the political realities of some of the funding decisions that may diverge from what a data-driven approach would be. So at the end of the day, the bicycle pedestrian priority area analysis we did is a tool. It's a tool to use, and we can help educate people about what it does and the implications of it. But it may be some time before that way of thinking gets sort of fully integrated into how the CIP is developed.
Got it. Thank you. Does anybody else in the group have a question? Chris, I see your hand.
Yeah, I have a question. Eli, this is Chris Etoff with Howard County. So in terms of policy direction, are you guys looking at all about maintenance of sidewalks? We've found that the traditional model of adjacent property owners maintaining sidewalks is sometimes a burden to implementation of sidewalks. Sometimes people will use that as a reason to object to sidewalks in their area. Is that a policy that you guys have currently and that you're looking to update or do something different?
Yes, so that is the current policy. The current policy on sidewalk maintenance is that the adjacent property owner is responsible. I think in our conversations about that policy, we found that there not a lot of people know sort of beyond snow removal what their responsibilities are. We've seen a lot of issues with overgrown vegetation, creating safety issues, trash receptacles, creating safety issues, those things like that. And that's sort of like the easier maintenance stuff to do. So we do have a recommendation in the plan to improve education around those topics. I think the bigger piece that we made another recommendation about is right now, like maintenance of sidewalks in terms of like crumbling sidewalks or heaved sidewalks. I think legally it's still the property owner's responsibility, but the county does does reconstruct sidewalk panels to make them accessible again.
Mhm.
But that process today is completely request driven, so 311 based, which I think studies have shown definitely there are equity implications to doing a request based system for something like that. So the plan recommends shifting to a proactive approach where in my previous career working at tool design, we worked with the city of Philadelphia on something similar where we looked at essentially breaking the city into sections. So breaking Montgomery County into sections, and then on an annual basis, inspecting each of these sections, and then sort of having the maintenance cycle for sidewalks follow that inspection cycle. So where every so many years, all of the sidewalks in the county would be inspected and then addressed in an equitable way. So I think understandably, so I guess it may be helpful for folks on the phone to understand that in Montgomery County, the planning department is independent of county government. It's sort of a function of we're a quasi-state agency with Prince George's planning and parks, such that the Department of Transportation is the agency that would likely implement a recommendation like that. But it may not be possible in the short term given sort of funding realities like operational costs and capital costs. So these are all conversations that we've had sort of in front of the planning board and then in front of the county council with MCDOT, et cetera, just about like, I think there's a lot of support for doing these sorts of things, but there's not enough money to hire people to do this or to detail people who have other responsibilities to do this sort of thing. So it's a recommendation that's there. I think its political time may come at some point in the same way that some of the recommendations we've already seen success. But yeah, I think there are definite equity issues. There are definite just issues in general with leaving maintenance to adjacent property owners for sidewalks in a way that we don't for roadways. Just creates, there's like a big double standard there and expectations about what is like a public good and things like that. So
Yeah, our DPW does make repairs to sidewalks, usually along with resurfacing. When they're resurfacing the roadway, they'll do the adjacent sidewalks and curb ramp ADA upgrades as well. And they're doing a good job of it. They inspect, they improve, but officially it's still in the county code that the adjacent homeowners are on the hook to maintain sidewalks, so people can still be concerned about that, or just use it as an excuse if they really don't want the sidewalks. For that reason, sometimes it becomes a substitute excuse. But yeah, I was just wondering how you guys were handling that. Thank you.
Yep.
Steve, go for it.
Thank you. Just a quick question on some of your last slides jumped out at me about the widening of the state highways for side paths. And you had a number of recommendations to add side paths and add widening for safety. And so I was just wondering what level was state highway involved in supporting your recommendations, or what level were they involved in this planning process to try to implement these in the future?
yeah, it's a great question. So we had at the agency level, there was an interagency working group for the pedestrian plan that met. I think it met in person a couple times. It was like during COVID partially, but there were sort of multiple opportunities to review the document as it advanced. And I mean, frankly, we didn't get a ton of feedback from the state on this. I think we would envision like the actual construction of these facilities, I think is largely context dependent and sensitive to available right of way and other things like that. And I think we view sort of the development of adjacent parcels as the primary mechanism to make that happen. But these are also in areas where we're less likely to have development in general. So I think these side paths were included generally because the bike plan from 2018 had said we would look more closely at side paths in the rural areas and didn't necessarily make these recommendations at that time. But where these are in the plan largely came out of conversations with MCDOT and then with the area transportation staff that we have who are most familiar with that up county rural area. So yeah, I think actually implementing, if the state was interested in capital projects to do this, I think we would be supportive of that. And whether it's on like what side of the road and things like that, we would be a supportive partner for a future project.
Cool. Any other questions out there? Eli?
I had a quick question, Eli. I don't know if you know this, but we've had interest from our local jurisdictions about doing pedestrian level of service, and but the one thing we struggled with is getting like the sidewalk width, and I think that's the biggest one. So I don't know if you had any thoughts on like how you guys gather that data, or if you've heard of any innovative ways to try to get that info.
Yeah. So the level of comfort data collection took, like, it frankly was the reason this took 4 years instead of 2 years. We're a big county. I think the jurisdictions that you're working with here in the Baltimore region are also pretty large. We just use Street View and like aerials and things and just measured them. And it took a long time. It took a long time. I think ideally, we would have been in a situation where we were working with a DOT or somebody like an asset manager who knew the widths of certain things, and then we could just have punched it into the formula that we had. But we were in a position where we're not maintaining the actual physical assets, but we had to catalog like their characteristics. So yeah, I go back and forth sometimes about whether or not it was a helpful exercise to do. Now that we have it, it's great. And we use it in a variety of processes, including regulatory applications in terms of like what requirements developers have on-site and off-site in terms of improving the pedestrian environment. But it was challenging. Yeah, I don't think there's like a secret way to, or like a secret source of all this information. But yeah, I guess one idea, if there's some like really savvy GIS people, you could, I mean, the Montgomery County has like planimetric data, which is like the actual LiDAR, like paving and other things. Like you could probably run some sort of script to like estimate the sidewalk width based on certain characteristics, and then connect that estimated width to some sort of line. That could be interesting and worth pursuing. We did like the very rote block by block, street by street data collection, which, so I mean, it mimics what we did for the bike plan, which I wasn't here then, but staff drove like every street in Montgomery County to measure and to, so it was like a very data intensive effort, and it created, if you go to our website, like a comprehensive source for this. I think it may be worth reaching out to, I think I saw either Fairfax City or Falls Church, Virginia, worked with Tool Design to do level of comfort analysis for pedestrians in the past couple years. So maybe worth connecting with them to see how they did it.
Tool
Yeah,
do it, something called the Pedestrian Infrastructure Assessment Tool that was for BMC jurisdictions, but it was different than what you're describing. In a way, I mean, I think your approach is more user friendly because it's, you know, this kind of level of comfort scoring is really intuitive and I appreciate. I mean, I think it looks really good. It does seem worthwhile to me. What we got from the tool developed for BMC was a lot more complicated, and you know, I mean, it was more of a prioritization tool. So where are the investments going to be best spent, and you know, it incorporates socioeconomic information and stuff too. So it wasn't just purely experiential, but there's something just very intuitive about what you have here, this level of comfort scoring.
yeah. I mean, there's definitely advantages to it. Like we created like everything here that you can see is like routable. Like you can use it to do other analyses. But it's also like immediately out of date, and we're like continuing, like as development projects happen, we're updating this data set. Our plan, we have a consulting task, I think with Cambridge Systematics or someone to update our data schema for this, so it's easier to update. And then also longer term, I think we would really like to integrate this into the state's One Maryland, One Centerline system so that we can rely on those other data sources to update things like speed limit and other things that we don't necessarily have a good sense of when they change. So that's like a bit of a longer term thing. So we get to the point where we're just essentially running the scoring script for this, and we're not actively maintaining the underlying data because we don't build sidewalks, we don't do any of this stuff. So like we're just kind of in a weird position of like looking at it from the outside. So that's the longer term thought. But it creates beautiful maps and it can do really cool analysis. Especially I think if you have agencies and people that are bought into the idea that like, well, we only have like $500,000, like where should that go? And like we can do analysis with this that shows like this connection is bad and it would serve like 1,000 kids a day or something if you improved it. So let's do that. Like that's a really high value. Because the rest of the route's fine. It's really just this pinch point here. So yeah. There's also a whole section in the plan of recommendations for Montgomery County Public Schools. I'm sure there are similar challenges with other school systems in the BMC area, but like they're obviously major property owners, major construction. They do a lot of construction and they provide civic spaces, and that civic space can be accessible. It can be accessibly located, it can be accessibly designed, or it cannot. And that can be a challenge. So there's some recommendations in here about that as well.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
Yeah, much appreciate being here. All right, well, we're going to move on to the next presentation. Still focusing on Montgomery County, we have Kyle Lukacs, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, trail planner for Montgomery Parks. Kyle, are you here?
Yep, I'm here. Thank you. It looks last name looks a little funky, but it's just Lucas.
Lucas.
Yep.
Okay.
But yeah, thanks for having me. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant that we received. So if you want to go to the next slide. So I put some stuff in here, and I'm not going to cover everything in the text here, but is a good reference point for people to look back at. But essentially, the SS4A grant is all about systematic approach to prevent deaths and serious injuries on the nation's roadways. So there's a ton of funding available, and they essentially go towards two types of grants, either planning and demonstration grant or implementation grants. In both cases, there should be an action plan for Montgomery County. Planning worked on planning and DOT worked on a Vision Zero action plan. So we kind of had that, which allowed us to go after the implementation grant. But separately, you can use the planning and demonstration grants to develop an action plan if you don't have one. Next slide. So this slide just kind of covers what some of the eligible applicants are. So political subdivisions of a state, MPOs, or kind of multi-jurisdictional groups of entities can kind of come together to do this. So Montgomery Parks, we're part of MNC PPC, which, as Eli kind of said, is essentially a state agency. So that's how we applied. Next slide. So I mentioned, there's planning and demonstration grants, which can go towards developing a new action plan or kind of supplemental planning or demonstration activities. Or there's an implementation grant, which is more of an infrastructure-based grant, which is what we went after. I included a link to, there's a self-certification eligibility worksheet that you can kind of go through to see if your organization or government is eligible. So just something to check out. Next slide. So this is a kind of a list of what they've said are eligible implementation activities. So anything from kind of complete streets to speed management to safe routes to school. There's a pretty wide list there. I'd say that ours kind of focuses on, kind of complete streets, bike network development, pedestrian safety enhancements, some of that. Next slide. These are some of the supplemental planning activities that you could do if you already have an action plan. So whether it's updating the action plan or doing some additional kind of analysis. Next slide. And then you can do demonstration activities. So, you can do a feasibility study or kind of a quick build pilot. So if that's putting flex posts out on a road to create, curb extensions or bike lanes, things like that would be eligible. Next slide. So I copied a couple slides from our kind of grant application. And then I've got an image here just showing the Vision Zero action plan for Montgomery County. Next slide. So we grouped kind of our application. We grouped it into kind of three main areas. The first is Sligo Creek Trail. So we've got a couple examples of kind of problematic areas. We also kind of listed out kind of the community profile, some of the safety challenges, and the potential improvements. The interesting thing about this grant is, typically if it's like a transportation alternatives grant, you're applying for, say, one specific project and you've developed a budget for that specific project. Whereas this one, we basically applied and said, here are the issues, here are some of the things we'd like to do. Then we awarded the project and we've been essentially narrowing down what exactly we're going to do. So there's some flexibility in the sense that you don't have to be 100% specific in what exactly you're looking to fund out of this. You can kind of refine that a little bit after. Next slide. So our second area is the Matthew Henson Trail. So again, we've got kind of the same overview things on the left-hand side. And for all of these, we've shown, where there are, where there's a history of, either bicycle or pedestrian crashes, the Vision Zero high injury network, as well as kind of predictive safety. Our planning department did a predictive safety analysis. And so we used all that. And so that is the one kind of aspect of this is there should be kind of a safety element to it. It should be either, along the high injury network or in a place where there is a history of crashes or at least a compelling argument as to, why it makes sense to go after this. So next slide. Our final location is kind of Wheaton Regional Park and the surrounding areas. So we called out, most of the projects that we included are either, listed in a master plan somewhere, either the bicycle master plan, the pedestrian master plan, or somewhere else. And so that's kind of how we developed our project list. And then next slide. And so in the end, we applied for and were awarded 7.5 million in federal funds. We did almost a $2.6 million match, which brings our total just above 10 million. Next slide. So I'm going to quickly go through some of the projects that we have included just to give you a sense of kind of what we're planning to fund out of this. Next slide. So the first, and, I'll kind of say that, we're a parks department, and, historically we focused on, improving things within our parks. And a big part of what we're trying to do, especially with this grant, is focus on, access to and from our parks. And with a big pot of money, it's a good way for us to bring both SHA and MCDOT to the table to say, hey, we've got this money. This is a project that we believe would be, very impactful and have huge safety implications. And so we've had a lot of great conversations so far. And so this first project I'm showing here, we've got Evans Park, Parkway Neighborhood Park, and Carroll Knowles Local Park. These are both on opposite sides of Georgia Ave. There's an existing kind of opening in the median, but no crosswalk or anything. So you'd have to walk about a block and a half south to cross at a light and then back. You can stand out here for probably 30 minutes and see that nobody does that. So what we're proposing here is kind of some curb extensions along with closing that median off, adding a hybrid beacon and a crosswalk to really connect the two parks on both sides of the Georgia. So next slide. Another example, this one is on Sligo Creek Trail at Dennis Avenue. And what we're proposing here, there's MCDOT put some flex posts out to essentially do curb extensions. And we're proposing to make that permanent with actual curb and gutter, as well as a raised crosswalk. Next slide. This is another one we'd be working with SHA on. So we'd be looking at kind of adding some medians to the crosswalks as well as curb extensions. And I believe this one is missing pedestrian signal heads, so adding those in as well. Next slide. This is one down at Piney Branch, so another SHA related project. We'd be looking to eliminate the right turn slip lane on Sligo Creek Parkway and kind of realigning the intersection to improve the barrier and kind of make it a little bit more comfortable for bikes and peds. Next slide. We're also looking, just generally speaking, along all of Sligo Creek Parkway at doing some traffic calming, so speed humps and things like that. Next slide. This is another one on Georgia. So this is one where there is a history of some bicyclist fatalities as well as other serious crashes. So we'd be looking here to improve and actually add a median refuge island. We're kind of narrowing and shifting the lanes over a little bit so that we can add a buffer to the side or the trail connection there. Next slide. And then this is just off the top of the screen is the last slide. So we're also looking at building a new paved connection to the neighborhood streets. Currently right now, you can kind of walk out to Georgia and you've got a 3, maybe 4 foot wide sidewalk that's got a guardrail behind the sidewalk. So generally it's not really the most comfortable experience. I'm sure in Eli's analysis that rate's super low. Next slide. This is another one right in that same area. Again, looking at kind of completing, kind of the bike ped network. This is currently just a Harmony Hills Park, has nothing going on in it at all. So we're looking to just build a paved connection that connects both ends of those kind of dead end streets. Next slide. And so, the the benefit of the grant application, like I said, is that you don't have to be specific. The challenge in that is ultimately you do. So we've been working over the past couple months to take kind of every project we had on our list to 10% design, so that we could get some realistic cost estimates for what the actual dollar amounts would be. And then last week we held a open house, kind of presenting all those projects to the community. Got some input on that. Thankfully, everybody was pretty on board with that. And after that, now we've got our dollar amounts. We know that everybody's generally on board for these projects, and so now we're kind of prioritizing them based on cost, the safety impact, and then just the deliverability of the project. So something with right away acquisition costs and uncertainty is a little more uncertain as far as getting under a grant agreement with FHWA. But so we're in the process of doing that now. I think it's a newer program for FHWA, so they're still figuring some things out. But it is nice because we're working directly with FHWA, and we're a direct recipient. So, compared to transportation alternatives, which would go, through SHA, we're interfacing directly with FHWA. And I think that's been a pretty good experience so far. And hopefully we can get our grant executed now that we've kind of finalized our project list, and start kind of moving this forward. So it's been somewhat of a long process, but part of that was just on our end, having to take our kind of general high level ideas into actual specific projects. And I think I've just got my contact info on this slide, so feel free to email me at any point if you'd like to ask questions or know more about the projects we're doing. And then we've got a link to our project website if you'd like to take a look at that.
All right. All right. Another really impressive project. Yeah, we here in Annapolis, we had a Safe Streets for All grant as well. And I could definitely relate to some of what you were saying about how it's different from some of the other grant programs that have been around for a while. I'm in the midst of my grant agreement as well, and it's painful process.
Yeah, it certainly is. We've been working. We have a consultant who helped us prepare our application, and has been working with us kind of in a program management capacity, which has been very helpful.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I bet that's helpful. I don't have any immediate questions. It's great to see Parks Department focusing on these kind of access locations, that might be outside of the park purview traditionally, but it's definitely a.
Yeah, and in talking about which of the projects kind of make our final list, part of the discussion has been, which of these projects are never going to get done if we don't do them right now. And that's kind of our approach on some is, we can find another funding source to build a section of trail down the line, but we're not going to find another internal funding source to add a hawk signal on a SHA road. So we've tried to keep that in mind as we've kind of worked on this.
I was curious. I was curious if your role within the Parks Department was initially. Did you come in kind of with a trail role, more traditional trail role, and then it kind of evolved into kind of focusing on these areas? Just because.
So I worked at Rails to Trails kind of at the start of my career, and have always been in kind of the bike ped trail world. I worked with Eli actually at Tool Design for a while, and then worked at Montgomery County DOT for almost 4 years before I joined the Parks Department. So I was working on shared use paths and side paths and bike lanes at DOT. And so, I came into this role, with a focus on trails, but also with the, our parks leadership and kind of trails team having a desire to kind of look outside the park. So I kind of got lucky in finding a role that kind of took a lot of my experience and helped implement it. And then this grant has really helped us to kind of actually get stuff done other than me coming up with ideas and bugging DOT or SHA to build it. It's kind of it's given us the the leverage kind of to get people to the table and to get them to kind of take us serious and hopefully help be good partners here. So I know it's been nice when we've talked to SHA and DOT. There hasn't been so much a hesitancy as there's been like we should go bigger, which is kind of refreshing. Like, well, why stop traffic calming at that intersection? We should go a couple more blocks because that's also part of the bike network. It remains to be seen if as some of the projects don't make our final list, will there be an interest by DOT or SHA to kind of help continue those or pick those up or chip in to maybe help us spread it around a little bit more. We'll see how that goes, but at the end of the day, we've got a little over 10 million to do some projects that are going to increase access to the trails and increase the safety of our existing trails and around the trails. So that's pretty exciting stuff.
Read.
I had a quick question. I know these awards are great with the Safe Streets for All being so big and you can do so much with it, but then the challenge is, of course, you have a much larger local match than you would for a smaller project. I didn't know if you had any tips to give, I guess, the locals to think about how to be innovative in funding match or anything like that.
Yeah, that's kind of been something that's progressed. In the end, the way that we had this bigger project list than we needed, we ultimately made the decision to keep our grant funding just to the capital funding. So we're funding the design work internally. And part of the reason for that is we did 10% design for all the projects. Now we've narrowed the list and now we'll enter the grant agreement. Whereas there's a concern of putting all the projects into an agreement, doing 10% design, and then having to revise that grant agreement almost immediately, raise some red flags for FHWA. So we've kind of revised to just focus on funding the capital improvements with the grant. I believe we originally had planned to do some kind of in-kind match through staff time and things like that. I don't believe we're planning to do that anymore, but certainly I think tracking and using in-kind matches as far as staff time and stuff like that is probably one way to hopefully kind of help out with that. But we've had the challenge as we've gone through kind of our budget cycle of we need these matching funds that are kind of over and above what we originally had in our kind of trails hard surface design and then trail hard surface kind of new construction. And so we've gotten additional money added to that, but we've kind of had to say, like, we need a lot more money if we want to preserve the original funding so we can do stuff in Montgomery County besides just these. And so I don't think we got quite as much as we were asking for, and we'll fully know in a week or so. But there is a burden of the match funds kind of getting programmed to existing CIP sources. But at the end of the day, these are all projects I think we would want to get done anyways. So even if it kind of delays some other stuff for a little bit, it's still, I think, in our best interest.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
Yeah.
Any other comments for Kyle? All right. Thanks for being here. We appreciate
Yeah, no problem.
the whole project.
Yeah.
Good luck with it.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's move on to the next agenda item. We're here with Mariam Sultan from, I'm actually not sure who you're with, but talking about Bike to Work Week. And I know that impacts everybody on this call, so thanks for being here.
Hi everyone, I'm Mariam Sultan. So I am the new multimodal planner at Baltimore Metropolitan Council, and I'll be presenting a quick update on Bike to Work Week, which is this week, so it's ongoing now. Give me 1 second to get my presentation up. Do you see it? Okay, perfect. Yeah, so Bike to Work Week is the entirety of this week. As of day before yesterday, we had registrants from every county and city in the Baltimore region, every jurisdiction in the Baltimore region. So our total is coming to 1,440. And the highest representation is from Baltimore City. So we have, during this week, pit stops where people can stop during biking to work. Mostly these events are on Thursday and Friday. We have pickups where people can pick up t-shirts that they've registered for, group rides, and 2 happy hours as well. And so in total, there are 21 celebratory events throughout the region. And this is up from the previous years. And we have 24 pickup locations throughout the region as well, with at least 1 in every jurisdiction. Registrants have participated throughout the spectrum. This is one of the questions that we asked in the sign up. So for many, this is their first year. The biggest chunk have participated for 2 to 4 years. And there's a solid group of people who have come back for more than a decade to participate in Bike to Work Week, specifically in the Baltimore region. That's really great to see. We advertised widely across radio and digital, Baltimore Magazine. We also had specifically targeting Spanish language speakers and Latin Opinion Baltimore. And then we use Nextdoor, Facebook, and Instagram for our social media. And that's basically all that I have. And hopefully you all will participate in a Bike to Work week event. You can check out our website. And if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out and ask. It's a really quick update.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll hear some updates from folks when we do the roundtable or the around the region comments. I know we have an event, our annual event here in Annapolis and Anne Arundel on Friday. Okay, any questions for Mariam?
I'm just going to put the website in the chat where you can find the local events and pickups.
Okay, cool. Good to meet you, and thanks for being here. Well, let's go ahead and we're on to the last part of our agenda here, which is the roundtable comments from all the jurisdictions. So this is the part of the meeting where we just look for ongoing projects, updates from your part of the region, things that others would benefit from hearing about. So I'll go ahead and get started with City of Annapolis. We're working on just a number of grant-funded projects that I've shared many times before. They are still happening. They're still moving forward. We're hoping to actually break ground on a couple of them in late fall. So one is our West-East Express and the other is our Hilltop Lane connector. And then we have a College Creek connector project that's also moving forward, but probably won't be breaking ground until sometime later in 2025. Our micromobility program is, we've been meeting with Bird recently as they came out of bankruptcy and appear to be a stable company at this point. So we hear that program we are trying to ensure sticks around, and Bird has been very supportive of the program here in Annapolis. So as our high season is coming up, we're hoping to really elevate that program. We did get a Safe Streets for All grant last year, and so I've been trying to get that going. And part of that is an action plan. So city, believe it or not, maybe not surprisingly, we've never done a comprehensive citywide mobility plan. So we're using that grant for that purpose, and it's going to address complete street standards and update our bike plan recommendations. So it's going to be a pretty robust plan. And then we're also doing some demonstration projects along Forest Drive, our most dangerous corridor in the county, or in Annapolis, I should say, but it's a county roadway that goes all the way through the city of Annapolis. So that's what I got from city of Annapolis. Anne Arundel County is next. I don't know if we have anybody from Anne Arundel today.
We do not have anybody from
Tanya
Canada.
is on vacation, although working while on vacation. I know I've gotten emails from her. So let's go ahead and go to Baltimore City. Anybody from Baltimore City here?
No one from Baltimore City today.
It's a small meeting today. I
Yeah.
know. Baltimore County? No.
I don't have ton to share. I mostly have bike to work day on my mind, just getting all that prepared for our pit stop in front of the old courthouse in Towson on Friday in the morning. And I know one of my colleagues is working on our Safe Streets for All grant that we received. I think we're working towards getting the funds for that, and also just working away on some of our trail projects, like wrapping up the feasibility study for the NCR trail extension, working towards full design on our Six Bridges Trail, West East Trail, and Northeast Trail, and doing some bike lanes.
Cool. Yeah, I have short-term memory problems, and I should have, we have a bike to work week event Friday at the Annapolis City Dock. That's an annual event that brings together elected officials from the county, Anne Arundel County, and city of Annapolis, and is typically a pretty fun event, and often showcases a lot of other transportation projects going on. So that's what we're.
Yeah, we're actually using it this year for the first time as a place to display some of our projects as well.
Cool.
And we'll have some THB bagels that we got donated as well.
Nice. I also, since Anne Arundel County isn't here, I'll just want to give a shout out to Tanya for, she's doing two big grants that relate to the city of Annapolis as well. And one is focusing on these key intersections at the edge of city of Annapolis where we go from city to county, and they're all terrible intersections, like totally impassable if you're a pedestrian or a cyclist. And we're trying to do a very community engaged process to really look at what is possible at those intersections to really make them more multimodal. And I think she's seeking Safe Streets for All money for that, and I think that's the program. But she's doing another grant that's also for Forest Drive, so I can't remember what program that's to, but anyhow, city county collaboration in action. Okay, next, Carroll County. Claire.
Hi, this is Claire Stewart with Carroll County. I guess the only update I have is we're kicking off the Finksburg Bike Ped Planning and Feasibility Study. And I'm coordinating with BMC and then the consultant for the scoping meeting to kick off the project.
All right. Thank you. Hartford County, anybody?
No one from Hartford County today.
Is Chris still here from Howard?
I am here. Eric. So our Bike to Work Day in Howard County, we're doing it in downtown Columbia at Culebras Park. It's actually an afternoon pit stop. So we're doing 3 to 5:30. So I'll just mention that in case anyone's planning on coming. Don't come in the morning. We won't be there. We're also working on a couple of public input tools, basically web maps to take public requests. One is for sidewalks and crosswalks. We have a form now that we use on our Walk Howard website, but it's just more of a text-based form. We're going to turn that into a map-based form, a map-based tool. And also similar for our neighborhood traffic calming program, which we're updating with DPW to be more inclusive and include more than speed humps and have a bit of a different process. Anyway, we're developing a public input tool for that as well, a map-based tool that people can click on the map and request neighborhood traffic calming. We're also working through our budget process, our operating budget in particular, and we're working to get some new funding for snow clearing equipment, specifically for protected bike lanes and shared use pathways alongside roadways. So basically smaller snow clearing equipment and other sweeping equipment. We've got quite a few of these kind of facilities that we're rolling out now, and it's a challenge for DPW to maintain them, as we all know, with their more traditional, larger vehicles. So we're going to have some smaller equipment, assuming our budget request goes through, but we're looking good so far. And then we're working on our first traffic garden. This is the bicycle-based, youth-based play area with learning street skills in a safe way for kids on bikes. So we're rolling one out in Huntington Park in the Kings Contrivance area of Columbia. We're just finalizing the design now. So our Rec and Parks is overseeing that project. It's on an old basketball court, basically a abandoned basketball court that's being repainted and redesigned as a traffic garden. So we're excited about that. We should be able to roll that out this summer, as well as other projects that I've mentioned previously or in the previous minutes. So I'll leave it at that.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Steve, Queen Anne's County.
Thank you. We are continuing to work on the South Island Trail extension. Currently it runs parallel to Maryland 8. We're working on a 2-mile extension of that trail, and we broke it down into phases. We currently have a phase under construction. We have a couple phases approved, and then we still have a phase under engineering. So it's all kind of in various stages, but over the next 2 years, we hope to have that all constructed and in place. We were successful in getting a land use connections grant through BMC to plan our next extension of the Cross Island Trail. So we're going to continue that east. And the Cross Island Trail follows the American Discovery Trail through Queen Anne's County. And we're going to, so that will actually be improving a section of the American Discovery Trail. So that's in the starting phases there. We also have a Safe Streets for All grant, and today's presentation was very helpful in giving me some ideas on how to narrow the focus of the grant. Right now, it's a planning grant that's trying to be all things to all people, and it can't be. So today, seeing some specific intersection improvements and how it could be targeted is going to be helpful in how I think about moving forward. So very timely. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Anybody from MDE here?
Hey, this is Catherine from MDE. I don't think I have any updates to share with the group.
MDP? Anyone? All right. MHSO?
Hey, everybody. First off, I want to thank all of those who were in attendance for the summit that we had on Monday. It was at a new location with some new things. So I hope that everybody enjoyed and should have received a survey. We really would love to hear everybody's thoughts on what what they thought of the new location, the presenters. If you still have the app and haven't rated your sessions, please do that for us too. We actually take the feedback and make that into the future year's planning. So we do take that to heart, everybody's feedback. So it's greatly appreciated. Thank you if you've already done that. Just like everybody else, Bike to Work Week, full swing. Already have done some things earlier in this week, and this Friday I'll be with Mitchell at Baltimore County, with Chris in the afternoon at Howard County with Julie, and then SHA's pit stop in Hanover. There's actually going to be a bike ride from the secretary's office down. If anybody wants more information for that, we're going to meet with Meg Young and her team at about 10:15 and head down to the SHA pit stop and then a ride back. So I think it's 3.5 miles each way, but looking forward to that. And then really for our office, we're continuing Bike Month right into June, it seems like. Julie will be at Colorburst Park for Howard County's Spring Around Downtown. I'll be in Anne Arundel County with Bike AAA's bike safety lessons for kids at Lindale Middle School. And then anybody who would love to come out, June 15th, Bike Collective in Baltimore City is holding their Crank Masters, which is a bike youth summit with some other things going on. So yeah, well, I'm excited that it's not just ending in May and we have a just as busy June. So thank everybody and enjoy Bike to Work Week.
Great to hear. Thanks, Cynthia. Anybody from MTA? I don't think so.
No one from MTA today.
No, we have a replacement for Patrick, right?
Yes, we're working on getting that solidified. But yeah.
SHA? Anyone from SHA?
I think they are no longer here.
Okay, and looks like we have Francine from Secretary's office, I believe.
Yes. Francine was
Oh,
saying.
finally,
Oh, there we go.
unmuted.
Okay.
Took me forever. Sorry, guys. Cynthia, thank you for the shout out for our MDOT TSO ride. I also wanted to share with you that there will be a bike safety talk as part of that. Again, it's approximately 10:15 at our lower parking lot here at TSO headquarters. And we hope you will be able to join us. Meg is doing this safety talk. And on another note, I hope all of you have received an invitation to the Sidewalk Data Collaboration Demonstration, which is May 23rd, next week, next Thursday, from 12:30 to 2. And if you haven't received an invite, please reach out to me. It will be a virtual demonstration, and we're very excited to unfold it, and it will be a continuation of Eli's presentation about what Montgomery County has been doing, and will also impact in some respects Kyle Lucas's presentation. So we're very excited about the launch of this demonstration. So thank you.
Much appreciated, Francine. And BMC, last but not least.
Thank you. Let's see. So the Patapsco Regional Greenway Stony Run Trail segment that goes from Elk Ridge to the BWI Trail, their second comment period is opening May 22nd. And they're looking to get feedback from people on the 4 alternative alignments that they have. And then they'll take that feedback and come up with a selected alignment. The other event we have is the Bikeable Baltimore Region project. That comment period is opening May 21st and it goes through July 26th. We'll have 8 in-person meetings and 2 virtual meetings in the month of June. So I'll get to see all you guys in person. So we will be sending you guys info, and a lot of you are on the steering committee. So we'll be sending information about the comment period, and we've got a flyer, and we'll have information about the public meetings as well.
Yeah, I know we have our meeting scheduled, I think, for June 25th here in Annapolis.
Yes.
So we will help promote that. With that, I don't believe there's any other business, but I'm gonna make a request if anybody has any. Now's your chance. Any other business folks would like to share? All right, well, hearing none. Our next meeting is July 17th. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Oh, do I have to do that? I just forget.
You
Yeah.
don't have to officially do
Okay.
that.
Okay, all right,
Turn to Regina.
all right. Well, that's our meeting for today. Thanks, everybody, for attending, and take care.
Thank
Good
you
luck
all.
with
Have a
Bye,
great day.
guys.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.